As Julie famously sang, let's start at the very beginning. It's a very good place to start. And look, she's right on the money, particularly when you're considering renovating or building a new home. However, if you've never renovated a house before, you're no doubt scratching your head wondering what that starting point even is. Look, every man and his uncle will have an opinion, and they will happily share said opinion with you, whether you want to hear it or not. And each opinion will inevitably be different and potentially conflicting too. Do you talk to an architect, a builder, an engineer maybe? What about just Googling how to start a reno? But then that thought pops into your head that so-and-so said he heard this or that, or it's no wonder you're confused. How can it be this hard to even know how to start, let alone get started? I know, and you know you're a smart person. But think about it this way. For most of us, this is a once-in-a-lifetime experience. So how can you be expected to know what the professionals take years to learn? So to get your project started in the best possible way, today I'm going to share my top 8 tips to help you prepare for and start your dream home project, because it really does matter how and where you start. If we haven't crossed paths before, let me introduce myself. I'm Sarah. I'm the founder of the Zen Reno, and I help homeowners, maybe just like you, to confidently start, navigate through and nail their home renovation or new build projects, and have heaps of fun getting there and getting a home they love living in, and are proud to show off to their friends and family. Look, it can't be denied. The process of designing and building your dream home is an incredibly exciting adventure. And when you think about it, you have an enormous privilege to be in a position to create a lasting representation, a physical representation of your values and of your style and your needs, and well, you. Just take a moment to really let that sink in, because there's little doubt seeing your dream home take shape is an undeniably amazing feeling. And witnessing your vision come to life right before your eyes, well, it really doesn't get much better than that. Yet, all too often homeowners start their home renovation or new build journey by leaping straight into the design phase. They start madly searching online for house plans. They doodle house layouts on anything they can get their hands on, and even start collecting, bookmarking and pinning with abandon every gorgeous drill-worthy image they come across. And some even jump straight into getting design plans drawn up from a designer or an architect right from the get-go. But don't be fooled. Starting your project like this can be a very risky endeavour, and this approach is undoubtedly fueled by all the unreality shows that bombard us when the minute we switch on our TVs. You know, the shows that skip through the planning and the design stage, focusing on a very condensed construction stage because, well, that makes much more dramatic TV. They touch on the design phase but completely overlook the critical planning stage that made that successful. Look, this is a very common approach. The approach of starting a project by jumping headfirst into the design phase is fraught with danger, because more often than not, it occurs without having considered, let alone taken the time to understand some very important issues. And by ignoring or even overlooking these issues, this is one of the big reasons many projects fall prey to the horror stories. You know the ones, the budget blowouts, the construction delays, the nightmarish experiences that people just love to tell you about the minute you mention the word home renovation. Look, building a home or renovating one is a big investment. It's a huge investment of your time and your hard-earned money, and it requires a huge effort on your part to make it happen. So it goes without saying, it requires, no scratch that, it deserves serious planning and serious budgeting, so you start your project fully prepared, and this will help you avoid being blindsided during your project. Did you know that the number one thing homeowners tell me at the end, and often during their project, is that they wish they had spent more time in the planning phases? Abraham Lincoln famously said, "If I only had an hour to chop down a tree, I would spend the first 45 minutes sharpening my axe. And depending on where you find the quote, the time frame varies, but the message is the same. Spend more time than you think preparing and planning. It may not be as sexy or as exciting as designing your dream home and scrolling through social media for beautiful images, but what it will give you is priceless. An amazing experience with an outcome you love and love living in without the nightmares. And that's the goal we're all striving for, isn't it? So do your homework before jumping straight into the design phase. Treat this time like a discovery phase where you uncover what to expect and how to approach the rest of the process. And it's a way to manage your expectations too. It's a way of figuring out what your project requirements are. And it's about learning what you want and even what you need. And it's about preparing for and planning for a smooth, fun, and exciting design process and then build stage. So with that in mind, here are our 8 top tips to help you prepare and start your dream home process. But before we do, make sure you hit the subscribe button and the notification bell next to it. That way you'll be amongst the first to know when our videos drop every single week. The very first thing to get a hold of is to understand your big picture project goals. This is what you want to achieve and why. Look, the saying goes, if you don't know where you're going, you'll end up someplace else. So having a clear idea of the outcomes will help you stay on track throughout your journey, and that will help you make great decisions along the way. So come up with a list of priorities, both quantitative and qualitative, that can define your project and help you answer the questions like what is important to me and what will make this project successful. Tip number 2 is understanding your requirements. In Australia, we have some of the biggest houses in the world, 183.3 square metres on average, which is 30% bigger than only 30 years ago. Yet the average number of people living in the houses has reduced from 4.5 people early last century to around 2.4 in recent years. Add that to studies that show that homeowners use only 20% of their home roughly 80% of the time, and it follows that we as a whole really should be considering the concept of better rather than more. And by that I mean making our homes work better and harder for us rather than just adding extra floor area to gain what we might be missing. And when you consider that every square metre you add to your home costs in the thousands of dollars and often many thousands, more can add up to be really expensive. And as an added bonus, by building a home that is appropriately sized to your needs and lifestyle, you can also minimise your environmental impact and maximise your investment. So consider building less space that meets your needs exceptionally well, rather than having wasted or underutilised spaces. Think about it. At $40,000, is that extra square bedroom you may use, maybe if someone were to come to stay, really worth it? Or can you combine it with an office? Or if the kids are going off to uni soon, do you really need that many bedrooms and bathrooms? The third thing you need to consider is your site. So tip number 3 is understand your site. A great home design fits and works within the land on which it sits. Each site or property is different, and a great home is situated at just the right location on the site with its windows in just the right places to frame or hide the views. It maintains setbacks from your boundary to minimise impacts on the neighbours and the street in which it resides. It responds to the breezes and avoids the floodplains and preserves the magnificent tree in the backyard and lets in just the right amount of sunlight so you can have a beautiful feeling home. And if you're building a new home or have ever wondered about whether you buy land or house first, the answer is land. And I'll be doing a video on that and why this is so in the near future, so keep an eye out. But suffice to say, a home should respond to the land on which it sits. So you want to have your site selected before starting the design process. Which brings us to tip number 4, understanding the timeline. For site-specific designs that respond to the landscape around, you aren't really going to easily be able to pick a design out of a book and just run with it. So the design process takes time, as does the construction process. And as these are one-off homes that have never been built before, a custom home can take around 12 to 18 months, if not more, before you can move in. And if there's a long regulatory process, it can take even longer. So you need to understand whether this will work into your personal situation and what your timeline requirements are. Another thing you need to consider, and this is number 5, is what are the rules? Like with most things in life, the residential building process comes with rules, sometimes a lot of them. And the simple fact is that you can't do whatever you want on your land. Those days are long gone. So it's really important to understand what those rules are and how they might impact your site and what you want to do or even achieve. Look, all sites will have planning and building approvals that apply, and your project will need to be approved on some level before you can legally start to build. And these approvals address things like types and size of development that is allowed, whether you live in a flood zone, for example, or a bushfire prone area, or is your home protected? So take the time to learn which agencies need to review and approve your design and what approval processes look like. And can you minimise or even avoid planning approval altogether? Actually, can you even do what you want to do on your specific block of land? The best place to start is with your local government planning authority, and this will help you determine your timeline and what your work might look like as well. Which brings us to number 6, which is understanding your budget. Money. It's completely unavoidable in this game, and here's a tip. Don't ignore it, tackle it head on, and most of all, be honest with yourself. Money is one of the biggest causes of horror stories. Look, this one is a biggie. Figure out how much you can spend on your project. Be realistic here. Do you have enough? And if not, can you get more? And be aware of the balance between your lifestyle and the mortgage at the end of the day. You don't want to find yourself in a position of having a mortgage that is so big that you don't get to enjoy your beautiful new home because all your time and money goes into paying off your mortgage. Remember too, there are more costs than just construction costs to allow for. Things like council fees and consultants fees, amongst other things. And then there's contingencies that you need to allow for involved in the total project cost. So maybe even talk to some architects or builders around typical costs based on a similar scope, size and style and the level of quality that you have in mind for your project. And be prepared to amend your expectations and answer some really tough questions about what you really need. You may have to par down some of the scope of your project once you realise how much it'll actually cost to build, landscape and furnish your home. And a big part of your budget will be dictated by the complexity of your project, which brings us to tip number 7, which is understanding the complexity of your project. Part of understanding the budget involves figuring out how complex your project is or will be. Are there a lot of site issues, for example? Is your block steep or is site access difficult? Do you have underground services you need to avoid? Look, a flat, rectangular or square block is always going to give you more options and be more cost effective to build on. But the reality is most blocks aren't as accommodating as that. There's also a big difference between building a project home and a custom home. Custom homes are one-of-a-kind projects and often use interesting materials and or methods and have some underlying unique aspects that make it truly yours and nobody else's. They also inherently have a bit more complexity. So how basic or custom your project will be is a matter of personal preference, budget, site requirement and design direction, as well as the amount of design refinement you wish to achieve. Which brings us to tip number 8, understanding that it takes a team. You can't do it all, nor are you an expert at all the things. Figure out what kinds of people you need to hire or work with. Hire people you trust who will work well with you and with others. Every project encounters obstacles. They will be easy to remedy if everyone works together as a team and communicates well. Look, this planning legwork is a critical part of any successful project. Get this right and it should be smooth sailing the rest of the way. It'll take time to figure things out, and trust me, there's a lot to figure out. There's your goals, what to build, how to budget, how long it may take, not to mention the need to identify potential problems or even pitfalls, and determining your needs versus your wants, and building and planning requirements, and site and budgetary concerns, functional requirements, and design style preferences, to name a few. You won't solve everything right away, but doing this upfront legwork, you'll be able to create a really solid foundation to help you throughout the rest of your home renovation process. And at the end of the day, it'll make your journey so much easier and so much more enjoyable. So there you have it, my top 8 tips to prepare and confidently start your home renovation and new build journey. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss future episodes. And feel free to let us know how we're doing. We're always listening. If you've got any topic ideas you'd like us to delve into, drop us a line. I'll pop some contact details in the show notes. The Zen Reno channel was created to share useful tips about renovating your home, and our aim is to help you navigate your dream home journey. So join us each week as we pull all our knowledge and experience out of our brain, because we want you to succeed almost as much as you do. See you next week.